This video is about the need for development of the Gestalt approach. The video contains critique, replies, opinions and suggestions for Gestalt therapy. The video is made by the Danish Gestalt therapist Stefan Green-Meinel. It's me speaking. I will introduce myself at the end of part 2. I will share what I think is the great and useful parts of Gestalt therapy, based on direct experience with clients through 10 years of private practice, and the parts I think needs more development. I hope Gestalt therapists and practitioners will reply and share their thinking so that we can have a fruitful debate and perhaps, as a community, improve the Gestalt approach so that it fits the needs and conditions of today. My thinking is largely based on these two questions. What is the client's best interest? How can Gestalt therapy meet this interest? It has been a fruitful consideration with uplifting answers. To share these answers, I will have to share some critique of the Gestalt approach that the process implied. The critique is in two parts. The first part goes back to the founding of Gestalt therapy in the 1950s in the USA. The fundamental intention with Gestalt therapy was to create a therapeutic approach that would increase the awareness within the client. This intention was coined in the saying, "Lose your head and come to your senses." It was a reaction against the contemporary way of life that was dominated by appearance, by mental decisions, with little emphasis on emotion and authentic reactions. The client would share a problematic issue, and the Gestalt therapist would respond with questions and suggest experiments, with the purpose to get the client in touch with authentic emotions, bodily sensations, and insights regarding decisions and behavior patterns. This would increase the client's overall awareness, which would provoke the need to act and hereby create the motivation for change. And then growth into a more satisfying life situation would happen in an organic and natural way. This was a sensational approach in the 1950s, and it has proven its worth for many years. But 60 years has passed. A lot of change has happened, not only to the USA, but to all the countries around the globe. The average person of today has a much broader horizon and a lot more insight than the average person of the 1950s USA. People know about their emotions. If they are out of touch with their bodily reactions, they will learn to get in touch pretty fast. Most people know about their own behavior patterns, and they are able to see the big picture. I think it's quite obvious that a Gestalt approach that was founded 60 years ago needs development in order to fit the increased awareness level of today. This obvious need for development is summed up in this question, the first part of the critique. If a client with high awareness enters a therapeutic approach that is about increasing awareness, what difference does the therapy make? I will reply this critique in a little while, but first I would like to get to the second part of the critique, which has to do with the core of the Gestalt approach. Since the fundamental Gestalt approach is about increasing awareness, a Gestalt therapy session will naturally have its focus on the here and now. Why is that? That is because awareness comes from being in touch with authentic reactions, and authentic reactions is something that happens in a spontaneous way, right here, right now. Therefore, Gestalt therapy developed an approach that would focus on and embrace the spontaneous reactions in the here and now. It was, and remains, the most direct way to increase awareness. Furthermore, the Gestalt approach is largely based on phenomenology, a philosophical doctrine by Edmund Husserl. In Gestalt therapy, phenomenology has led to the basic position that it is the client, and the client only, that knows what is right or wrong in his or her experience of the world. Consequently, the basic approach in the Gestalt therapy session is to explore with the client how he or she acts in the world, and also to explore the background history of what has led to the present situation. The exploration of the client's reality goes on in an here and now setting, which will cause spontaneous reactions to happen, which will increase awareness, which will create the motivation for change, that will then happen in an organic and natural way. In this perspective, it's quite natural that a lot of the skills of a Gestalt therapist is about being able to work in a process of the here and now. The better the here and now skills of the therapist are, the more likely the formula of Gestalt therapy will work. This ability to work in the here and now can both be a dead end or provide outstanding opportunities. Let's have a look at both. Since the Gestalt session is aiming at spontaneous reactions in the here and now, it is structured as an open space in which the client has the opportunity to be him or herself, to be authentic, to experiment, to explore, to feel free. This provides outstanding opportunities. The client need not to adapt into pre-expected development. There is a fundamental freedom to get in touch with and communicate about the essence of the personality. This aim for a liberating moment is as strong and beneficial today as it was in the 1950s. The Gestalt session will be a journey of personal meaning that will take its shape and course completely depending on the individual client. Consequently, a Gestalt session can be described in many different ways, but it will most likely include words like emotions, contact, meaning, flow, decisions, dialogue, and joy. It's decisive, exciting, and intense therapy. The dead end of the here and now approach is that there's more to a course of therapy than the here and now. There is a session after session perspective. If this is ignored, there is a risk that the sessions, regardless the decisive, exciting intensity, can appear as isolated islands. The classic starting point of a here and now session is what the client wants to work with. The Gestalt therapist will respond from a phenomenology point of view. The aim is to create authentic reactions. In respect of this, the Gestalt therapist will conduct passive leadership so that the client's reactions is in the foreground and the therapist's reactions in the background. This is an ideal setup to honor authentic reactions, but there is a risk of losing the interconnectedness between sessions, a risk that the overall direction is lost. This leads me to the second part of the critique that is summed up in this statement. Gestalt therapy does not focus on and has no tools for the session after session perspective. One can ask, if the Gestalt therapist is not watching out for the session after session perspective, who is? This is what a course of Gestalt therapy looks like in a meta perspective. It is decisive, exciting, and intense moments of here and now. But there is no clear beginning, no clear course, and no clear ending. I would like to reply the critique right away. The reply is, use a note system. It's quite easy to keep track of the session after session perspective with the use of a proper note system. A note system will enable the Gestalt therapist to get an overview of the course of the therapy and the client's background history prior to a session, and thereby get a useful meta perspective. Of course, any Gestalt note system will work, but at this point, I don't know about any Gestalt note systems except my own design, which is the 1+3 note system for Gestalt therapists. The 1+3 note system is distributed under the legal terms that is used for open source software, which means anybody can download, use, and distribute the note system free of charge. This is what the benefit of a note system looks like. The Gestalt therapist can choose to respond from a meta perspective of the therapy and thereby navigate the process in a clear and conscious way. The 1+3 note system for Gestalt therapists can be downloaded from this web address, www.notesystem.eu. Development of the Gestalt approach continues in Part 2.